Hello, Internet. I'm going to give a nice little review of White Box Fantastic Medieval Adventure Game. So, way back in the day, I don't remember when it was, that Matt Finch went ahead and put back together, I say put back together, White Box, the original Dungeons and Dragons. And this was after Ostrich was published, and he put that out with Stuart Marshall. And they came out and later on came out with the White Box, which is really kind of a cool way of doing things, and moved on to Swords and Wizardry Complete, which was White Box with the little brown books that came after it. So it's a 6-book compilation. It's actually the precursor to Advanced D&D, or 1E, a lot of people like to say. So lately I've been getting into playing White Box, and there's reasons for that. And I'd like to kind of go through the simplicity and the beauty of the design of the game, because it is beautiful in its own little way for playing. And I think one of the most beautiful ways of playing is if you ever want to get someone to be interested in role-playing games or playing games of the style, this is a great entry game because it requires so little to get up and rolling, right? I do a video on how to create a character. It took like 25 minutes with me talking the whole time with showing dice rolls and stuff like that. I'm just going to kind of scroll through parts of this stuff and brief over what's in this book. The book itself is so cheap. Go to Amazon. It's like less than $5. That's with Prime, right? To get it to your doorstep. I paid a little bit more and got the hardbound book. I have like 8 of the softbound books for like $5 each. So you think about it, it's like $40. I walk into a classroom because I teach high school. Hey, we're going to do this. Everybody has a book to look at. It's a nice way of doing it, right? The other one that's a good steal and a half is the Basic Fantasy. Great design. I tend to like this one even better, and I'll tell you why. Is it all comes down to how simple can you get a game where you can get kids playing. All right, so the love starts early and it stays there, right? Another one is White Star. Love that one. I play that with a group of kids and they love it too. So I'm just going to go through White Box and you can take a look at it and you'll get a more or less a gist of what it has to offer. Okay, so first of all, the artwork is all, how would you say, unified. It says, I think they had a single artist kind of really doing most of this stuff. It says 2 guys right here. Um, William McCausland, phenomenal artist, and this other guy does the character sheet. I'm not a humongous fan of the character sheet. That's why I made a character card. I thought it could be better organized. And so if you go back and look at my other videos, I actually go to my website, you can actually see the other cards. So to let you know where my stuff is, if you go to drduick.com, click on the icosahedra, it looks like an atom. And if you scroll down here, here's the White Box book, right? Because it is a free thing. And here's my version, which is a note card. You click on this. This is my note card. This is all you need to get playing on this game. Pretty straightforward, makes it real easy, and you can pick up things. Like I said, I have a video that goes through the entire how do you create a character thing. So let's take a look here. So this is a great table of contents, goes through everything, and I'm going to roll through most of this stuff all the way up into a little bit about the equipment thing. The actual playing of the game, I'll try to put a video together that shows solo play, but I'll pretend there's other people there because it's kind of fun. All right. So let's take a look at what we got going on here. So the introduction, he goes explanation why he picked what he did, right? And this is Charlie Mason, the guy who kind of put this together. Actually, he picked up where Matt Finch left off and kept rolling with it. And right off the bat, you roll 1d6, find out where you're going to go. Anywhere you want, you're only limited by your imagination, right? So you could do anything you want. And right off the bat, it tells you it was created by 2 guys. That was Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. And what it comes down to is it's just limited by your imagination, right? So start off with, there's a couple of things. So there's a referee and there's players. You can actually play as a player and a referee. I do that with my son sometimes. I let them make the decision making. I scope out what's going on and they instruct what's going on and I kind of roll with them. We do as a team thing. They kind of like that because that way they know that I'm not going to kill myself off inadvertently. They sometimes people think the referee's out to get you. And if you're playing like that, it's kind of a vicious way to play, but it's just a nice way of another way of doing stuff. If you need a support staff, oh, we need a cleric. I'll do the cleric on the side as an NPC. And you basically let them make all the decisions, right? Rule number 1, very important in this game, is the referee has the right to modify the rules. In fact, it's encouraged. This is your game after all. If there are any gaps in rules, holes left open on purpose, because much of the fun in role-playing games is able to make up the rules as needed. I sometimes, and I'll talk about what I change as I go along to make the game more enjoyable. It's all about making it more enjoyable, right? Here's one of the cool things about the game, and already I'm going to start inking things up. Okay, and I like this. You only need 2 dice to play this game: a d6, which sometimes you see as a d6, and you only need a d20. So if you bought a bunch of D20s and you have a bunch of, like you buy a whole pack of D20s and everybody has D6s, it's a common dice, right? 6-sided dice. You could sit there and hand them out at the group of 10 kids that don't have dice, and say, oh, go out and buy, some kids don't have money to go out and buy dice. Well, I could buy all the dice I need and everybody has 2 dice. You can play the whole game. That's what makes it so much fun. I mean, there's like a lack of obligation on the have your own individual dice set, and like they can be used in the game, but they're not used very much. You can have all characters just using these 2 dice for everything. So that's one of the big sells when you're trying to teach kids how to play in the game, right? So for all practical reasons, this kind of goes into the purpose of why the dice is all about probabilities, and even 100-sided dice is rarely used, okay? So easy to learn and play, simple and clear, and obviously there's actually several optional rules, and you'll see this throughout the thing. And house rules. I have my own personal house rules when I play things because, and I do my own sheets. If you go back to over here, I have up here this whole section called house rules. And it talks about thief. Everybody can be a thief or steal and do other things like that. Alignments, how to do checks. So if you have your own version of it and you make it available, people aren't going to argue. I just don't advise in the middle of play changing a rule. People don't tend to like that. So if you tell them ahead of time, hey, you're going to do this thing, here's the rules by which we're doing this, and everybody's held accountable, you're going to be fine, right? Here's what a character sheet looks like. The guy who designed it. Once again, I like it and I don't like it. I think it's kind of cool because it's kind of cartoon written, but I think you can make it even easier on new players, and I'll show you why. So going back to what I've done down here, this is my version of the character sheet. I just took and added some easy things. They circle what kind of pack they want, because if everybody's playing it for the first time, they don't know what they need to walk in. You circle for 50 gold pieces, you get either pack A or pack B, and then you can pick extra stuff if you got money for it. You also have to have weapons and armor. I think if you have this spelled out, your bonus to hits based on your level and your strength will determine your advantage extra points you have when you're in melee. And for weapon range, it's your bonus hit plus your dexterity score. And we'll talk about those when you go into actual shooting something ranged, such as a bow or a sling. And then you pick the armor class by just circling what you have and add it to a base of 10 and add your dexterity to it. And that will help you determine your armor class. I did this to make it a slight easier thing. And you just put your weapon out here to the outside. For playing, it makes it much easier. I even go so far as, like I said, I'm never happy with anything. I made my own note card for this, okay? So if you look at this note card right here, it's kind of set up more or less the same way, except I have things a little more written out. This is the big numbers. Well, what do I have to add to that? I put that in a box. So you have your bonus to hit. I'm a 3rd level fighter. It's 3. My strength is +1, so it's a +4. I put +4 here. If I have 3, I have a 0 for my dexterity. Therefore, it's just a 3. You write these here, and that's what they have to add onto the rolls so they can see it. And I use circles for arrows and bullets so they can color it in as they use to find out what they have. I tell them to do it lightly. And I have another thing too, I'll show you later on maybe, is I use little wooden blocks that actually have Magic the Gathering countdown timers, spin down timers for arrows and bullets and hit points, because it makes it much easier for keeping track of play, because you keep erasing, you're going to burn a hole in the paper, right? Once again, you have your attribute scores right here. It's a little cleaner. And I do a little thing here for some groups. They like to do the DC checks because they came from 5e. It makes more sense to them. So this is for a DC 10. You add a +2 if you're here for 17, 18, 13 to 16. And then it gets into the minuses if you really get low on your stat rolls, right? So we'll talk about all that. But that's what you got. Look here. So your attributes, it's the standard attributes. It's the one that started them all, right? It is strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. 3d6, and I played it straight down. That's always fun. What you get is what you get. 3d6, you get to move 1, you know. Sometimes you do 3d6 or actually 4d6 and drop the lowest. You do what you like, what you think your characters playing characters will enjoy the most. Somehow 3d6 is kind of fun because there's limitations out there. The game is harder, but it's taken into consideration by the game master that knows it's going to be a mess. This guy also does this, and we don't rarely do this, where you can exchange points 1 for 1, but you only on the prime attribute for each character, okay? And you can't go below a 9. All right, so if you can do that shift if you want. It's kind of cool. He put this in here for those that need it written down, because people like RAW style rules as written. So, so one person is let them roll 3d6 6 times and arrange the rolls however they want. He does this, okay? If it's between 3 and 6, it's a -1, and 15 to 18, it's a +1. I showed, like I think in the last video, character creation, why I say if you get a 17 or 18, it's a +2, because it doesn't come up much at all. So why not get the bonus for the guy that accidentally has it come up? So it's sort of an interesting fact, right? So some people do the average range between 9 and 12, right? And that is Swords and Wizardry Complete does it that way, if you ever played that game. Another wonderful game that's, of course, Matt Finch did a great job with that one. So anyways, looking at here's experience. Most people are always going to try to hit that because they'll put their highest scores in their prime attribute. So that's what this is explaining, okay? And we're going to talk about the thing. Strength, of course, is physical power. So strength of 15 plus, you get a +5 to your bonus XP, and you get a bonus to hit, okay? Intelligence, once again, it's if you're above a 15, you're going to get your bonus. You get an extra extra language every score above 10. So if you're 18, if you're a wizard, you'll have 8 additional languages, which I guess you'll just pick out of the book, or you talk to your game master. He'll help you decide. I sometimes like to leave that completely open. This is kind of a weird way of playing it. And if you come across something and you say, oh, I'm going to burn one of my foreign or how would you say, extra languages. I've met a kobold. I want to be able to speak kobold. And as they go through, they acquire their languages. Like they learn them, but then they max out and they don't get any more. And some people might say, why don't you make them up? Well, they don't know what they're going to encounter. I mean, they encounter goblin and they want to be able to speak goblin. And okay, well, then that's the way it goes. But they might use them all up and later on they meet a dragon and can't speak. So the idea is it's still a choice they got to make. I tend to do it that way because it's a little more fun. They acquire the talent to speak other languages. Wisdom, I do it a little different. Just letting you know, any cleric above 15 gets the 5% raise, right? I also if you get above a 15 in wisdom, you're a cleric, you get a first level spell. Clerics in this game do not get a first level spell. And I always say your first level spell has to be Cure Light Wounds because that's what you're there for, right? Not trying to be a dictator, Todd, or something, but I'm just letting them know that your job as a healer has a big influence on how the game will be played. You could also do Binding of Wounds in this game, like right after a battle, you bind yourself and then you get hit points back that way, but it never ever seems enough. So I always say 15 above, the cleric gets an extra spell right off the bat. Constitution is how healthy you are and your endurance. And this is, once again, it's rules is written compared to what you're going to do. I let them take their Constitution score and add it to their hit points for first level. So sometimes I say it's full hit points first level, but what I like to do is say, okay, you got a Constitution of 10, you roll 1d6 for your hit points for first level. So 10 plus 1d6, and that's going to be your hit points starting off. The problem a lot of times with these games is called the funnel effect, and what you get a whole bunch of characters, a lot of them get killed off. From 10 characters, you shift down to 1, only 1 survives. Well, people tend not to invest that much in their character if they think it's going to die off, and they get upset. So what I do is I make them a little, how would you say, spongier. You can take a little more hits. So if you have a hit point and let's say your hit point's around 20, you could take realistically 3 to 4 hits, probably closer to 4 or 5 if things went appropriately, before you're dead. So if you can somehow survive a battle taking 4 hits, your cleric can heal you, or you bind some wounds, and you keep going on with the journey. If you start off with 166 roll, you could take 1 hit and you're out of commission if you rolled like a 2. So it's a matter of choice. It's a matter of how you want to play your game, and I think it causes some people anxiety, or they think the game's boring because they get killed right away, which happens. Just letting you know. So that's something to take consideration. Dexterity. is your coordination, your quickness. Once again, the 15, according to their chart. Like I said, I do mine a little different. I give them a little more range. Charisma is an underplayed thing sometimes, and it's really, really important in the OSR. You have to hire people if you want to get, if you're a wizard and you're walking in there with no armor, which means you have an armor class of 10, right? Just FYI, you want to have somebody left over and get a hireling. You want to get yourself a meat shield. That's what we say. You got to pick somebody that's going to be loyal to you, and they can stand in front of the actual monsters and take blows and hold up a shield. Their armor class gets adjusted thereof. That's another way that you can think of this as being very important. Charisma is something that's actually going to be involved when you have to lie. I do that all the time. You come to an NPC, you tell me a big story. The better your story, the bonus you get, but you still have to roll, let's say, a 1d20 under your stat, or if you're doing the difficulty checks, okay? That's another way you can look at this, right? So this gives you a nice little range for this thing, how many hirelings you can have and their level of loyalty. And once again, loyalty, this factors in, there's a bunch of ways you could do loyalty. I have a whole section on hirelings if you want to go back and take a look at it, how this would be influential in there, right? Hit points, hit dice is a 1d6. And so a fighter gets 1d6 plus 1, and therefore rolls 1d6 and adds 1 to the score, right? Like I said, I add the constitutional bonus in the beginning. It's whatever your constitution score added onto it, and it keeps the characters alive longer. It lets them be smarter, not harder, I guess you might say, on making choices. Alignment, law, chaos, and neutral. Like I said in a previous video, I don't let any chaotic characters go through it because then it becomes such a dark game. It's not fun. I also play with kids and they start doing really heinous things. I don't think it's corporative play for a reason. Everybody's working towards a common good. So I really do think to live out their darker fantasies is probably something they could, go play Fortnite and kill a bunch of stuff and not care about anybody. But when you're doing this, you're working as a group of, let's say, 4 to 5 people to a goal. You can't have one person working against them because it just doesn't work out right. Just let you know. And after a while, you have something called character retirement. And they eventually get to the point where they don't do anymore. You can expand the levels. Let's go through the classes. Very simple. Nowadays, I guess in some of the more modern RPGs, they have so many classes, there's so many choices. This is a straightforward choices, the very fundamental way of playing this game. The first one's the cleric, right? And it's an armored priest. So you get a bunch of choices here, okay? He can get up on the front line with the fighter. They're most always lawful. Like I said, I don't play evil characters. None of them are neutral. You stick them, if you have somebody that's really slow, got a bad dexterity, perfect character to be a cleric. You put plate mail armor on them, give them a shield, so their armor class is really bumped up. Stick a mace in their hand and able to cast spells, they can still do massive amounts of damage. Spell casting, and I'll show you what the chart looks like. I let them turn around and start casting at first level if you have above a 15 in wisdom. They do get a saving throw versus poison and paralysis of +2. Okay, so look at this is their progress sheet. It doesn't take that many experience points to go forward. So this is 1,500 to get to the second level. They get 1d6 as their thing. Like I said, if you roll 1d6 and you get a 1, that stinks. But if you have a constitution of 12 and you roll 1d6, you get a 1, that's 13. You are going to live at least through two punches in most of these things, right? So something to take into consideration. You don't get a 2-hit bonus until you get to 4th level because that's not your prime objective, right? Your saving throw starts high, I would say 15, and you don't get any spells to 2nd level. What's considered your 1st level spell is the ability to turn the undead, which you'll see in the next chart, right? So if you have a 15 in your wisdom, I grant them the 1st level spell, and then they always have the next one, they get an additional 1. So you always get 1 plus whatever you have. Like I said, this makes it a little more interesting for the character itself or for the player, okay? You can say progress is all the way up to 10 and it kind of stops. And that's how these games are. I never really played above 10 for any of these games because I think it's really hard to keep track of, right? It tells you what you could do if you get so big, like become a patriarch of a temple, right? And it talks about the whole thing. Now let's talk about turning the undead. You make a 3d6 roll, right? And 1 term attempt can be made per encounter. So if the result of the dice is greater than the number shown on the table, all undead creatures of the target type are turned and will flee for 3d6 rounds, or cower helplessly and if they are unable to flee. And that's why I let the characters go around and jank the undead. I say, just come up and stab them from behind and automatic kills at that point instead of having to roll a bunch of dice, because that's boring. So what they do is they could turn a bunch of zombies in the room to go to against the walls, then the fighter and or even the cleric goes back and bashes them with the mace or something like that. Unless it's a really, really big character, you turn to vampire, but you attack it, they can turn back on you, right? So when it says D, it means whatever it is they turn could turn to crumble to dust. So here's first level. You could turn everything up to a white, okay? So 3d6, and you can see that's pretty hard to hit a 17. But all these other guys, skeletons are pretty much easy to turn. They're center of the bell curve, right? Skeletons, ghouls, and such. So this is actually considered your first level ability as a cleric. And that's why you don't get a first level spell, but I give one, like I said, if you have a wisdom of 15. The real intense ones, like the vampires, there's several of them because you have different level vampires, 7th level vampire, 8th level, or 9th level. As you can tell, the higher the level vampire, the harder it is to turn them, okay? And a lich it's basically an undead sorcerer. Ooh, that's a cool, God, that's a neat looking picture, right? So they say right here, I try to count this merely as a first level spell. So some people, referees say you can only do it once and before you have to take a long rest, right? So I don't really do that, but some people do that. And they say if you're going to play the chaotic cleric, like I said, I don't have those type of campaigns, but they can actually turn them, right? If it results as a D on the table, instead of destroying, it's forced into servitude. So you can have a bunch of skeletons forcing around. I think that would be fun to play if you did a solo campaign with one other individual and they played an evil cleric, and then basically you're able to kind of like have these undead servants and stuff, okay? Fighter, one of the easiest, how would you say, let's go back here. Easiest classes to play straight off the bat. Everybody can do it, and fun. Let's put that with just always fun. So people think of all the different versions of things you can have. Samurais, medieval knights, Viking raiders, doesn't matter. In your mind, what you think a fighter would look like, right? And they could use any kind of weapon. Here's the cool thing about it is if they're fighting more than one opponent, if they're less than one hit dice or less, if you have a 4th level fighter, it can attack 4 of them at a time. That's really awesome. And you don't understand how powerful it is. If you have 8 goblins coming after a 4th level fighter, and he's got a bow, right? 8 goblins, 4th level fighter. He can fire 8 shots. He gets 2 shots per round, right? So 2 for every level. That's 8 shots at 8 goblins. And it depends how good a shot he is. He could probably get all of them before they get on him, right? Before he has to pull out the old double-handed sword and start whacking away, right? Fighters get a +2 bonus on saving throws versus death and poison. And there's actually some other alternative saving throw matrix, which I don't use. I just use the single saving throw. It makes it much easier. So look at them. It's a little harder to go up in experience. It's 500 gold pieces more. I'm sorry, experience points more. Experience points same as gold pieces. You acquire gold pieces. It's the same as experience. It's a monetary version of experience points. Pretty easy to keep track of. They get an extra hit point. Like I said, if you have Constitution of 10, let's take the rudimentary 10, and you turn around and I'm going to add that to whatever my dice rolls. I roll a 4, plus 1's 5, plus my 10, I get 15 hit points starting off. Like I said, this makes it a little easier for people to play the game and not feel they're going to die right away with only 2 hit point fighter. That would be horrible, right? You get a nice linear climb up to about 9th level, right? Well, I don't know, 1, 2, 3. It's not really that linear. There's little steps in it. So that's kind of fun because the boost, you're more likely to have the ability to hit the other character. Of course, you're acquiring magical items along the way. So you might be a 5th level fighter. You get a +3 to hit. And you also have a +2 sword, so you get a +5 to hit. That makes it much easier. And then all of a sudden, you're doing some major butt kicking, right, for your party. Saving throws, you can tell they have the better saving throws. It starts at 14 and it goes all the way down to 5 once you get to 10th level. Now, like that, that's cool. Here's a nice little picture. The artwork, phenomenal here. Look at this. Guys are coming on this fighter. He's got a 2-handed sword. He's going to do some damage. Nice. Good times, right? You get big enough, you get like a stronghold type thing, and it talks about extra experience you get. I've never really toyed much with extra experience points. I just say everybody's kind of getting it. Like I said, the number crunching part of that does not seem that fun for me or the characters. Magic users, we call them the glass cannons. They could do devastating amount of damage. Not right off the bat, though. I mean, they have one good spell right off the bat, and we'll talk about what that is. That can be a game changer, but most of the time, magic users are not going to withstand too many blows. So they have to have a book of spells. Okay, so they're not going to be able to wear armor because it disrupts things. So they get a +2 bonus on saving throw versus spells. Okay, even those they cast from wands and staves, right? And here's the bonus they get if their intelligence is high enough. I don't do this and probably should, where if you get a 15 or higher on your intelligence, you get an extra first level spell. So they get 2 spells, big deal. I don't know. It depends on how you game master, right? And then they can eventually get big enough to get your own, you know, how would you say, stronghold. So this, when they get 1 spell, first level, they cast that one, it's gone. And like I said, it's kind of fun because they're cool to have, but eventually when they get up in this range, once they get that 3rd level spell, 5th level, and they get fireball, that's when they become different. That's when they sit in the back and they conjure up something that's going to change the world, right? And I say that because you wouldn't really think that they have, why would anybody want to do this? They're big and they're scary. Once they get up into here, once they get that fireball, they're a sight to behold in the battlefield. 6th level, you could cast 2 of them. So you got, you know, and as you, I mean, the spells get better and better as you go up, right? The climb is hardest, right? 1,500 for the cleric, 2,000 for the fighter, 2,500 for the wizard. So keep that in mind. It's a harder climb, but once again, look at this. The hit dice, they only get 1 hit dice, and they don't even get a second hit dice. They get 1 + 1. They're tender, but again, if you add the constitutional bonus that I suggest doing, you can have these guys hang around a little bit longer. Right? Last one's thief, and it already says optional. It wasn't really one of the first ones. I have the class. I usually get someone to be a halfling to play a thief because it's just so very Tolkien-esque, I guess you might say. They have a little category that they can roll on, and I don't really have that set up on my character sheet, but you put it there. And what you would call the referee can tell you when you need to roll for something. So as far as to go a backstab, this is what makes them, generally speaking, a little more feared than not. They can attack anyone from, if they attack behind, if they're surprised, like they come up behind somebody going to jank them when they're not actually paying attention. You get to basically get a +2 your hit, and then they get double damage. And the other additions, like Sorcerer Wizardry Complete, at a certain level, like 5th level, it becomes triple damage, and then it becomes, you know, quadruple damage. It becomes different as it goes up. This game just keeps it at most double damage, which is kind of cool. I always say probably the best thing is double max damage, so it makes it really worth their while. Because when it's rare that you're going to be able to sneak up on something without them knowing, so you might as well make it big time incentive to do so. Makes them play their character better. They get a +2 if they're avoiding traps, anything mundane or magical. And then they get a thievery thing. Okay, so trying to explain this to everybody. Everybody gets a 1 out of 6 on doing something that's crazy, right? Their skills go up. So basically, everyone gets a 1 out of 6 chance. These guys will get a 2 out of 6, which is a 33% chance for doing some kind of thievery thing. And like I said, the cool thing about this book is you talk to the game master might say, wow, so you totally snuck down there, you're a halfling, nobody sees you there, it's a crowded marking space. I would say you get a bonus on that of 1, so now it's a 3 out of 6. Why not? That's what makes it fun, is that you can, you know, adjudicate the situation, make it a little more incentive to actually trying new things. You know, it keeps people being creative more than anything, right? So the referee rolls a 1d6. The result is equal to it. And the idea is that thieves are not often aware when their attempts remain stealth, fail, or they believe are successful. This is where I kind of differ. I don't know, because it's not going to change that much to have them roll it, and then they know they failed and the action still happens. They can't change their action. So for example, this is just where I'm going to differ greatly here. And I just do this because I believe as many dice rolls as possible can happen to the actual, have the character do it the more fun it is. So let's say my son Mason decides he's going to be a thief and he wants to pick some rich guy's pocket. I say, you want to pick his pocket? I go, yeah. So you're halfling, yeah. Okay, it's a crowded thing. You get a +1 on your roll. So you have to roll a 3 or less, right? So you have to roll 3, 2, or 1 to steal this, okay? Sure you want to do it? Yep, gonna do it. Okay, he rolls a 6. Not only does he fail, he fails big time. Okay, people like rolling their stats. I like it because it just changes. There's up for attacks and down for skills. That's how I do it. So now he knows something's going to happen. But he also knows that I'm not making it. I'm not trying to conceal it behind a screen, then tell him what happened. He knows it went bad. He knows what's going to happen, and then I just sort of start describing what happened. So the suspense has shifted, not off the narrative. It's on his role. It's kind of like Vegas style playing. So before it happens, I sometimes even tell them what's going to happen. Like if you roll above a 3, let's say if you roll a 4, 5, or 6, the guy's going to turn around and grab your hand and lift you up off the ground like you're a child and start waving his finger in your face, start yelling at you and call the police. You sure you want to roll that dice? Now it's even more intense. Now he's got to roll the dice. He knows all this stuff's going to happen. It depends on how you game master. Really, honestly, it really depends on you as the person playing the game, as the referee, making them fire up on their decisions, letting them know what will happen if it goes horribly wrong or horribly right or whatever they want to do, right? Once again, they do have their chart. This guy gets to the next level the quickest. And say, look at this, he's second level is 1250. Third level is 2500. By that time, the magic user now hit second level, right? Because they're most likely to die. Anytime you're trying to open up safes or boxes, whatever it is with poison needles, your chances are you're going to get killed. So just letting you know, although they get a bonus for traps and stuff like that, they get whacked out pretty quick. As you can see, their thievery skills go up as it goes, which makes sense. And they get a prime bonus with dexterity, and that is where we're going to leave off. So this is character creation all the way up to here. I can mention the last couple things with the races real quick. Yeah, might as well. And that's what this whole video would be about. So let's look at the races real quick. You don't have a whole lot to choose from, but that's, that's what makes the game fun because people don't spend a whole lot of time overthinking these things. Dwarf class is pretty awesome. They can pick fighter or thief, okay? They can go as high as 6th level. If you like to limit races, it's because they get their bonuses. They should be a little more restricted. The trained in warfare can do anything they want. They get, when they fight bigger things like giants, ogres, and different things like that, they're not really good at fighting dwarves because they're so small and they run around, and I think they taunt them more or less. So they only inflict half the normal damage whenever it's directed at them. That's something to take into consideration depending on if you want to be a dwarf, right? They can also, this really helps, all right? When you're looking for traps on the ground, slanting passages, construction, as a referee, I just roll and let them know if they see something, unless they're actively searching. This is one of the times I'm rolling for the guy saying, oh, you noticed this. So that makes it a little bit of fun that they have this ability, okay? They get a +4 against magic because they're just not into it. And obviously they have their own dialect, and they can also speak gnome, goblin, orc, and kobold, which really, really help if you have a low intelligence dwarf. They still get these dialects to work with. And elf, all right? So elves are fascinating, kind of ethereal characters, generally speaking. So they have them doing several different things, right? Can you be a fighter magic user, all right? They can go high as 4th level fighter or 8th level magic user, right? So the cool thing about the elf is they're kind of like a split level right off the bat. So it depends on how you want to play them, right? So the capabilities of the fighter or magic user result, elf has 2 different advancement paths, right? So yeah, I tend to like just let them, I take the 2, average them, and let them roll. That's what I do. So if it's 1,500 for the fighter, no, I'm sorry, 2,000 for the fighter, 2,500 for the magic user, I'd say your level progression is the magic user progression, but you're like a fighter magic user. You could do all the stuff for both of them, but you gotta, and I don't know, like I don't want to get too weird about trying to average the 2 and stuff like that. I just trying to make it one thing. Makes it easier for play. So they have armor limitations, right? So One thing I do is just say the most you can have is like leather armor on you, which doesn't seem to inhibit magic too much. Okay. And then they gain their bonuses for fighting certain things. They're immune to paralysis caused by the undead, such as ghouls, and they can easily find concealed doors and such. So the character's an awesome character. Like I said, I just kind of pick it more on the magic user with leather armor, and then they get these other bonuses in here. That's kind of how I do it because I don't like to overthink what I'm doing too much, right? And they do have this progress chart here. Like I said, it's a matter of preference. It takes a while to get 5,000 experience points. So they tend not to. Um, this is a way of it'd be so slow to progress. That's why I just say they kind of keep the magic user thing, and maybe the magic user gets a bonus spell in the beginning with an intelligence of 15. Like I said, 5,000 experience points. You got to do a lot of work to get to 5,000. It was a real hard climb. So, like I said, this is. I have people tend not to pick like this avenue of doing things because of the climb being so high, right? Um, like I said, it's a matter of preference. It's really kind of cool way of doing it. And this is where like elves may not use two-headed weapons or shields while casting spells. Of course they can't. It's in the way, right? So, but the thing is they could stick their polearm on the ground and cast a spell. It's like interesting they do this. Halfling, great class, one of my favorite ones, especially if you're running the thief, right? The fighter or thief, highest fourth level fighter, sixth level thief. These get a +2 to hit when firing missile weapons. So you stick this guy, if he has an 18 dexterity, according to my stats, for 17 to get you a +2, and you get a +2 for firing weapons, you're halfling, that's a +4 to your hits. That's awesome, right? And if you get a magic bow, you're crazy, right? So it's short bows the best they can do because they're little guys, but they get the same kind of bonus that the dwarves get with bigger creatures not be able to inflict full damage on them. And here's the one that can basically move around nearly invisible. That's fun. And they cheerful characters, you got to kind of play them to a T. So I'm stopping here. And so with that, you pretty much know everything is to actually build a character. Another one actually build the fighter. It takes 25 minutes. Quite a long video here. It's like about 38 minutes total. But I thank you for your time. Hopefully you found it interesting and finding this is something you may want to delve into to play, especially with a group of kids. If you have 12 and unders and they just want to see what it's about, I would never crack a 5e book on these kids. It's just too much. You get this thing, 24 pages. We went through how to create every character, and if you roll it with them and everybody does it, it's a very, very successful means of doing things. All right. With that, interweb, why don't you have an excellent day?